Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So we've talked to our next guest before when he was being challenged to be on the ballot, a petition challenge that was filed by Marty Quinn. He's the Madigan mini-me, who's the 13th Ward Alderman. David Krupa is a DePaul undergrad who's running for alderman in the 13th Ward. And if you recall in that case,
that's right, signatures.
Yeah, the Madigan goon squad went out and got more affidavits suggesting that people hadn't signed David Krupa's petitions than there were actually petitions that signature petitions that David Krupa filed. And also the intersection between the affidavit saying I didn't sign David Krupa's petitions and the actual names of people on David Krupa's petitions, the match, the Venn diagram, was a sliver of the signatories. So the bottom line is it was 4 figures of fraud. Every fraudulent affidavit is a felonious act. What's to be done about it? There was some initial reporting that there was going to be a local investigation. Maybe even the FBI was looking at that. I don't know where that stands. But David Krupa and his team aren't waiting for law enforcement to act. This week, he filed a civil suit against Mike Madigan and Marty Quinn. So it's nice to see Mike Madigan getting it from a couple of different angles this week. For more on this story and David Krupa's candidacy, we're pleased to be joined by David Krupa, 13th Ward Aldermanic candidate. David, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, it's great talking to you guys again. I appreciate it as well.
So before we get to your lawsuit, do you have any idea if and where law enforcement investigations, whether locally or federally, stand with respect to what happened?
Well, it's FBI protocol that they don't tell you whether or not they're investigating,
Right.
But they do say that they're looking into it, as in my case. They take every complaint very seriously, and the fact that they called me and asked me a couple of questions means that there very well might be an investigation, and it's certainly something for Madigan to be scared about. As for local investigators like the Inspector General or the State's Attorney's Office, I believe they are also looking into it. I've gotten calls from people saying that Cook County sheriffs came to their door and asked them to verify their signature and showed them these revocations. Of course, these people aren't getting in trouble, but they're just investigating to see, how many were actually invalid.
Now, have you been invited by Danny Solis to an Asian massage parlor to try and settle this matter out of court?
No, I haven't
Okay.
talked to Danny Solis.
All right, just curious.
David, are you at liberty to tell us what the FBI asked you? What kind of questions?
It was basically, it was basically just all the nuances of what had happened. It's all information. Everything that I know that I told him, I've told a media outlet at one point or another. So he just wanted me to catch him up to speed.
Now so tell us about the civil suit that you filed against Madigan and Madigan mini-me Marty Quinn this week.
Well, in the civil lawsuit, the federal lawsuit, we alleged that there was civil rights violations, violations of my constitutional rights, fraud and conspiracy on the parts of Marty Quinn, Michael Madigan, 13th Ward Democratic Organization, Citizens for Marty Quinn, and possibly friends of Michael J. Madigan who financed the entire organization. And these are the defendants in the federal lawsuit, and we can also add more as we go along.
And so give us the basis for this, or maybe just take a step back. Were the federal authorities aware you were going to file this civil suit? Because sometimes they don't want things to run concurrently, and so I just wonder if they were aware that you were moving civilly against Madigan and Marty Quinn as well.
I did not speak to them about, whether or not I was going to file this federal lawsuit. I mean, it was something that I was talking about in the media. Mm-hmm. They never told me not to do it. And I wanted to jump on it quick because it takes probably many years, like 2 or 3 years to finish one of these things. So.
And what is it that you're hoping to gain from the suit?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, my lawyer and I want to set a precedent. So if anyone has, if anybody abuses the objection process in the future or abuses the revocation process, and we win this federal lawsuit, hopefully future candidates can cite this and say, well, you can't do that because Krupa versus Madigan. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do legally. The other things that I'm trying to do are go after Mike Madigan and my alderman, Marty Quinn, and try and secure justice for not just myself and really not just the people who have been taken off the ballot for the past 27 years, but the people of the ward, the voters of the ward who were forced and strong-armed to perjure themselves. And, this whole revocation process has been such a headache to many people. They're now referring to themselves as victims. And when there's victims, you need justice. And this is a great way to bring them to justice. Anything that we find here in this federal lawsuit will be immediately turned over to the FBI, and hopefully they can use it towards any investigation that they're doing. And, of course, I want to get these guys on the record for what happened.
Okay.
Those are the biggest things.
So what have you learned from this whole process? I mean, you're young. How old are you?
19.
19. Okay, you're not even old enough to drink yet. So that's all right. You can't hang out with Dan yet.
He's barely old enough to be your son. I mean, it might be more like a grandson.
But what have you learned from all of this? I mean, this is just eye-opening, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a great learning experience. You hear stories about Chicago politics, but it's certainly interesting to live it and to be at the end of the barrel when these guys are doing all this stuff. But we've managed to survive through it all, keep ourselves on the ballot. And I think it's somewhat impressive for a newcomer like myself to come in and totally embarrass this political machine, because realistically, that's what's happened. I mean, every time we do something that exposes them, we add insult to injury. And I know that Madigan can't stand it. I mean, we got him to issue a statement publicly.
Yeah, that suggests that they're capable of being embarrassed, which I'm not so sure, but I take your point. So where does the campaign stand? I mean, you do have this race that could be adjudicated on February 26th if Marty Quinn gets 50% plus one of the vote, or if you do, probably less likely. Where does that race stand? How's the campaign going? Do you get the sense that ward residents are aware of this imbroglio that you've started?
Well, I think the campaign is actually going a lot better than people give us credit for. If everybody comes out to vote, if people don't stay home because they think, oh, well, my vote isn't going to make a difference. No, your vote will probably make the difference. It's going to be a competitive race, but I think we're going to come out on top. I think we've been the favorite to win since just before the holidays. And I think that we can really make history here. We can be the change that we want to see in the world, and we can start by changing the corrupt Chicago politics and voting out some of the corrupt officials like Mike Madigan and Marty Quinn.
Yeah, but give us a sense. Give us a sense of families in the ward.
What are you
give us a sense of what the 13th ward composition is and what people are saying to you about Madigan and Marty.
Okay, so the 13th ward composition is made up of roughly 66% Hispanic and most of the rest is white as of the last census. Most people don't like Madigan, obviously, and then a lot of people don't even like Marty Quinn, but he's the more appealing one. And what I found through the signature process was that there was a lot of people who wanted to support us that couldn't because they were city workers or didn't want to sign because their precinct captain would, not give them any services or something like that. So people are scared, but I want them to know that come election day, the precinct captains and Mike Madigan are not going to know who you vote for in the polling booth. So you can say one thing now and put up their sign and vote a totally different way in the polling booth if you so choose.
Ooh, yeah, a little
Nice.
surreptitious play. I like that. All right, David Krupa, people want more information on your campaign. Where do they go? What's your website?
Well, we're about to totally revamp our website. It's davidkrupa.com. it's going to be turning from the blue color that it is now to another orange, and we're going to add a lot more text to it. We've also got quite a bit of information about the campaign on the GoFundMe as well, which is there's a link to that on the website, and our Facebook page, David Krupa for 13th Ward Alderman.
And you haven't been expelled from DePaul for daring to run against the Chicago Democrats, have you?
No, DePaul has not told me that they were going to expel me.
Okay, good. I just wanted to check
Stay
in.
safe, watch your back.
Yeah, the tentacles where they reach.
Oh, and real quick, has anything else happened to you? Like a slash tires, anything that we need to know?
No, but actually, it's funny you said the slash tires thing because a political advisor of mine actually got his tires slashed, and they know who he is. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was related, but I'm not going to make that insinuation.
Make sure they don't cut your brake line, okay?
Okay,
yeah, that one.
Well, you're playing with the big boys now.
Okay, all right. Somebody's watched too many episodes of House of Cards, David. David Krupa, candidate for 13th Ward Alderman. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
And thank you very much for having me.
All right, good luck.
Take care, good luck.
He joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.